Hey, Shalom, Shalom, Akims. First and foremost, giving all praises unto Yahweh by Hashem Yahushua, by Hashem Kakudash, giving double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom and salutation to all you sincere Akims across the four winds, pushing this truth for sincerity of heart. I'm your fellow seven Kasama guy from the DC camp, and I'm coming at you through the spirit and power of Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushua, by Hashem Hakudash, to feed the elect. Basically, I just want to go into our prophecy and the race wars. Because of course, Yahweh Shai prophesied in the book of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. You know what I'm saying? And even all the prophets in the Old Testament prophesied of a major race war. You know what I'm saying? And what you're going to witness is going to be a race war of levels that's never been seen before. Especially right here in the United States of America, which is known in the scriptures as the Virgin Daughter of Babylon. As you see right here, these are like plenty of videos, what's going on socially, because the thing is, the scripture says you need to be circumspect, meaning you have to have knowledge of what's going on within yourself, within the brotherhood, what's going on, nationally, and what's going on internationally. All right, and what's going on nationally now? Of course, you got the whole Trump thing going on, man. And you've been having a lot of attacks, people getting attacked, Trump supporters getting attacked. About Democrats and so on and so forth. And all types of videos are coming out. I just seen this video earlier, how this big old Jake, down in California, just pretty much, man, bump rushed a whole bunch of Trump supporters, man. And I mean, it was, and they got to scuffling a little bit. And then, and then the Jake got arrested. Like he literally pulled over in the middle of the road and started going after Trump supporters. And they, like I said, they got into a little scuffle, and then the police showed up. Now, one of the things that I was looking at was this article right here. Because this particular article lets you know that not only will there be a race war, a massive civil war that's going to turn into a race war, but this is going to be the biggest race war that's ever been in the history of humankind. Now, this is the main reason why, okay? Of course, the Lord is going to set it up through the Spirit, but this is how you know. These are the symptoms of a nation that's getting ready to explode. All right, the article is Fact Tank, okay? News in the numbers. And it says Americans divided on how much they trust their neighbors. All right, so that's going into the social system of America. Okay, so it says whites, seniors, wealthy, among those most likely to trust their neighbors. So when you look at this chart, what it says is that right there, the average of people, the average of Americans, regardless of race, well, not really regardless of race, when you talk about white, black, and Hispanics, right? The average American says 48%, but trust some of their neighbors. On the left hand side, it says 48% trust some of their neighbors or none of their neighbors. Okay? And then you have 52%, it says they trust most of their neighbors or all of their neighbors. That number is ridiculously. Now somebody would say, well, it's still 52%, but remember, this is when you add, whites, which is so-called whites, which is Edomites, right? And you have black and Hispanics. Of course, you also had the native, which those are Israelites, right? Those numbers are awfully close, especially 48%. 48% out of 300 million people. That's a lot. That's a lot of people. Now, when you go into specifics, all right, so when you deal with whites or Edomites, right, it says that only 38%. Now, it says 38% of Edomites, right? It says trust some or none of their neighbors. Okay, so that's the mentality. So you have 38%, and this chart goes back to 2015. We're in 2019 now, and with all the Trump shit that's going on, that number is definitely risen. Okay, because you have a lot of dissensions even between Edomites. Okay, in this society. So, and it says 62% trust most or all. So like it says, okay, we're in the same chart. No. Let me go back. It says 62% trust most or all of their neighbors. But now this is where it gets really good, okay? This is so-called Negroes or blacks, okay? So-called Negroes. It says 68% trust some or none of their neighbors, and only 31% trust most or all of their neighbors. So you can already see that when you're talking about so-called Negroes, look at the numbers. And that really has a lot to do with the curses. That's why you got that so-called, black on black crime that is so high, because there is no love and there is no trust, in our neighborhoods between Israelites, especially starting with the so-called black man that's from the tribe of Judah, Benjamin and Levi. Then look at the number below. Look at the Hispanics, okay, which is the Northern Kingdom. Okay, Ephraim on down. It says 72% so-called Hispanics, okay, out of the Northern Kingdom, 72% trust some or none. But only 27% trust most or all of their neighbors. You see that? So there's a lot of distrust going on in the nation of Israel. Okay, but why is that? The reason why is because when you go to Deuteronomy 28, and first I'm gonna read 15. It says Deuteronomy 28:15. It says, "But it shall come to pass, if thou would not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy power." And again, this is Moses speaking to the nation of Israel. Okay, and back then there was 12 tribes, so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Okay, right after we've gotten delivered from the hands of the Egyptians. Okay, the natural-born Hamites are Africans. All right, the children of Ham. Now it says Deuteronomy 28:15, "But it shall come to pass, if thou would not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy power, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee." So now when you read the rest of the chapter, it's nothing but curses, and you can see the only people that match these curses are the so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans. I'm going to read a few of them. Like verse 16, it says, "Cursed shall thou be in the city, and cursed shall thou be in the field." Okay, cursed shall thy basket in thy store. That's the reason why we have no businesses. Okay, one of the reasons why we can't have no business is because we don't trust each other. You trying to start up a business and you hire family members and they stab you in the fucking back and they're stealing your money. And then you try to hire a brother, from your own nation. And he being lazy as shit, man. He's not taking the shit. He's not taking the job seriously because in the back of his mind, he's being hired by somebody of his own nation. That's a curse, man. That's a curse. But it goes back to not trusting your neighbor. Okay, not having love for your neighbor. All right. So I'm gonna jump all the way down to verse 50. So like 50. All right, 54. Deuteronomy chapter 28:54. It says, "So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil towards his brother, or his neighbor, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave." Right, because even recently I remember I was speaking to 3 different Israelite women, all right, 3 different black women, and all of them were just single mothers. 2 of them, the nigga just, she got pregnant, and the nigga said, "Nah, you gotta commit abortion," and she said, "Hell no, I'm not doing that," so he dipped out. And then the other one, he just nowhere to be found. So you got a lot of the men, the Israelite men, the so-called black man, having that hatred towards the woman of his bosom and his child. So he wants nothing to do with the woman that he laid with and the child that came out of that, And in return, the woman, also with all the demons that they got, these so-called black women, they also have hatred, and they will use the enemy, which is a so-called white man, against the black man. So you got that dynamic going on, all right? But that's the reason why when you go back to this chart, it's the numbers are huge, and the disparity in the numbers when it comes to so-called blacks and Hispanics, only 68%, trust some of their neighbors or none. But only 31% of Negroes trust most Negroes of all Negroes. You know what I'm saying? And so-called Hispanics, 72% trust some or none of their neighbors. And only 27% trust most or all of their neighbors, man. Now, let's get down to the age as well. It says age 65, but age it says 65 and up. And so it says 18 to 29. So individuals that are 18 from 29. This is really going with everybody in America, right? It says individuals that are between the age of 18 to 29. It says 61% of individuals between the age of 18 to 29 trust some or none of their neighbors. That's why you see the crime rate, especially in the urban areas, right? Where you have you Israelites, so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans. There's the crime rate is so high, and the death rate really goes from what youngest between the age of 18 and 28, 29, man. What, 18 and 27? The majority of the men of our nation don't get to live past 25. See, those are the numbers, and this goes back to 2015. All right, it says between the age of 30 and 49, 49% trust in some or none of their neighbors. Okay, and then 50 and 64, 46%. Okay, so now let's go to the finances as well, because the one thing about this major race war that's coming, it's going to start off as a civil war, because a lot of it also has to do with class. Okay, it also has to do with class and then race, but it starts with race, and it also has to do with class, all the finances. So it says 75%. Not 70. The people that make I'm gonna start at the top. It says the people that made pretty much 75,000 plus, only 33% trust in some or none of their neighbors. 67% trust in most of all their neighbors. So the people that usually make $75,000 and up, they got more trust in their neighbors. Okay, why? Because a lot of times they're surrounded by people that also make money because of their living standard. You got 30 to 75K, 45%, 55. Now you got people that make 30,000 and less, which that's usually where you so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans fall into. 30%, 30,000 and below. 63% of y'all have no trust in your neighbors. Okay, against 37%. Okay, so and then you got the college. Now check this out. All the way in the bottom, they got rural areas 40%, suburban areas 45%, urban areas 54%. That's the reason why more than 50% of you so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans do not trust your neighbor, man. And that's a curse. Now, let's read a little bit about this. It says, good neighbors can be a blessing, whether they're people you can trust to water the plants or watch the kids. But building that trust can be hard. Just half of Americans, 52%, say they trust all or most of their neighbors, while a similar share, 48%, say they trust some or none of their neighbors, according to a 2015 Pew Research Center survey. Not surprising, those who say they feel unsafe in their neighborhoods are less likely to trust their neighbors. See that? Those who say they feel unsafe in their neighborhoods are less likely to trust their neighbors. Like over there in the DMV, like these savages in Southeast, and Northwest, when you Northeast. So when you walk around these places, man, and you see the home, you see the murder rate, you know what I'm saying? You can feel the hatred and the demons in that. Of course, you're not going to trust your neighbor. Your next door neighbor is plotting on how to steal, man, and how to kill. So it's, and like I said, when this economy collapse, you're going to see cannibalism. You're going to see hatred on a level that's never been seen on the planet Earth. It's going to get crazy out here because there is no love. All right. There is no trust between people, between neighbors. Okay. It says just 17% of respondents who feel not at all safe from crime when they're walking in their neighborhoods after dark say they trust all or most of their neighbors, compared to 71% of those who feel very safe. Urban residents who are less likely than suburban or rural residents to say they feel very safe in their neighborhoods. Right. I mean, it's pretty. I mean, that's pretty obvious. I mean, if you live in these places, of course you're not going to feel safe because the high levels of poverty. And the economy hasn't even collapsed yet. It says, are also less likely to say they trust all or most of their neighbors. All right. It says the demographic difference on neighborly trust are largely related to economic class at a time of rising residential segregation by income. Our survey finds that Americans who can afford to live in more affluent neighborhoods are generally more trusting of their neighbors. Now let's look up the word affluent. When you look up the word affluent, because it says the people that live in the affluent neighborhoods tend to trust their neighbors more. Affluent means abounding in, meaning these are people that are making good money. All right. That's why when we looked at that chart, it said what? When you looked up that chart, it says 75. It says people that are making 75K and up, right? Trust the majority of them trust their neighbors. 67% of them trust their neighbors. So they tend to live in the same neighborhoods. But when this economy collapses, all hell is gonna break loose. All right. And the people that feel like they've been in poverty the whole time, which are mostly so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans, Israelites, a lot of them gonna bug out and they're gonna move and run into these neighborhoods. Okay, when you have Edomites, you might have some sellout Negroes as well, but they're gonna move in there and it's gonna be carnage. Okay, it's gonna be rape, it's gonna be carnage, it's gonna be cannibalism, it's gonna be kidnappings, it's gonna be hostage situations. It's gonna be wild out here, man. Okay. So I'm gonna finish this paragraph and I'm gonna hit some scriptures. It says I'm gonna read this paragraph again. It says the demographic difference on neighborly trust are largely related to economic class. At a time of rising residential segregation by income, our survey finds that Americans who can afford to live in more affluent neighborhoods are generally more trusting of their neighbors. 67% of those with household income of 75K or more say they trust all or most of their neighbors, compared with just 37% of those earning less than 30% per year, which those usually tends to be you so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Okay, so you constantly in the bottom, getting your ass handed to you economically and socially. All right, so now you're gonna have a financial collapse that's gonna lead to a total fall of society. Okay, and that's another thing too. I mean, because that's how you're supposed to be sociable, man. You're supposed to be sociable. But first, let me get this. Let me get the scripture. This is Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18. It says, "Thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am the Lord, Yahweh." Okay, so you're supposed to love your neighbor as yourself. You're supposed to have to trust your neighbor. But we living in the days of judgment, and we living in days where men are men are extremely wicked. The only reason why a lot of people haven't just gone out there and just released their high levels of wickedness is because you still have certain laws and you still have penalties. You still got the death penalty. You still got life sentences. You got these jail cells. So you got a lot of dudes that they want to commit mass murder and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? But they thinking about the consequences. But when the economy collapses, society falls, what's going to happen? Or all them demons is going to be released. All right. Now, this is the word sociable. It says enjoying the company of others. Okay. It says from Middle French sociable. It says sociabilis, close, intimate, easily united, to join, to unite. See, that's what's lacking. This whole system and the elites has set it up like that. Okay. This system where capitalism thrives, because capitalism thrives in an unsociable society, because you can't have a society where capitalism thrives where people are sociable, because you gotta fuck people over. That's just how the stock market capitalism is built for ruthless motherfuckers, man. Just like in the movie Wolf of Wall Street, you gotta step over somebody's neck. All right, you gotta destroy your neighbor, man. That's how capitalism, was able to thrive. So now it kind of, when capitalism thrived, what it did is just like the scripture says, as the king is, so is the people. So now as unsociable as people are in the marketplaces and ruthless, it's the same mentality that your average Babylonian or American, it's the same mentality that he has. You look around the city, people walking around totally unsociable, man. Hatred and tension is all over the place. Okay, and when you add politics on top of that, this thing is getting ready to explode, right? And it's all prophesied in the Bible. This is Mark chapter 3, verse 24. It says, and if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. Okay, and if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. So that house or kingdom in this case is talking about America. America is totally divided against itself, man. Look at all the multiple videos on YouTube about dudes getting harassed and getting beat up. You got a cracker over here, the Edomite, who's bloodied up. You know what I'm saying? I seen right here, like this dude right here with the green, with the neo green shirt. He got beat up, man, full of blood. And you got Antifa and all that other craziness that's going on. So this place is divided. You know, the people are unsociable. They hate their neighbors. Okay, and the nation of Israel has got that same sentiment, where not only do they hate Esau, but at the same time they hate themselves. So it's gonna be total madness when this economy collapse, man. Okay, this is Isaiah chapter 19, and I'm gonna start at 1. It says, the burden of Egypt, and this is spiritual Egypt, which is America. The burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord Yahweh Bashim Shah rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. Now this is the point. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians. This is talking about modern day Egypt, spiritual Egypt, according to the book of Revelation. Spiritual Egypt is the United States of America. You look in the back of the dollar bill, it's got the pyramid. You go to DC, up here DC, we got the monument, which goes back to Alexandria, Egypt. Okay, a lot of the gods and deities that are worshipped in America are Egyptian gods. So the spirit of Egypt lives again in these United States of America. Okay, so Isaiah 19:2 says, and I will set the Egyptians, aka Americans, against the Egyptians, Americans, and they shall fight every one against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor. There you go. That's why, again, that unsociable mindset that's been lingering, that's been around this wicked ass place, and that's thrive on the capitalism. When the money falls, all hell is gonna break loose, man. The biggest race war in humanity is gonna take place right here in the United States of America. All 18 nations are represented right here in America. It's gonna be a bloodbath. It says, and it's going to be a battle royale, okay? It says, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom, okay? So, this is Luke chapter 21 and 10. Actually, I'm going to start at 9. It says, but when ye shall hear of wars and commotions, which that's what we've been hearing about, wars and commotions. You got commotions going on in Venezuela, commotions in Syria. With Israel, you got a lot of commotions going on all across the globe. If you're watching the prophecies, it says, but when ye shall hear of wars and commotions, be not terrified, for these things must first come to pass, but the end is not by and by. Then, meaning right after, when you hearing these wars and commotion, you're supposed to be expecting what to happen. Verse 10, then said he unto them, nation, when you go, shall rise against nation. You look up that word nation, it goes back to tribe. It goes back to the Latin raza, or race. Okay, the biggest race war in humanity is going to take place right here in the United States of America. Like I said, a battle royale, a bloodbath is coming. It says, then said he unto them, nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. Okay, so that's what we, you got coming down the pipe. You know what I'm saying? Whether you like it, believe it or not, that's the future of America. Okay, America is being destroyed from the inside. The Most High said in Ezekiel, take it out piece by piece. Okay, so the biggest thing we got to look forward to is the civil war that's going to turn into a race war, man. So basically, that's what I wanted to bring forth to To the brothers, to the hopeful elect Bakarim Yasha Allah, man. Hopefully you brothers will edify. I guess, hey, you can check out this article right here, man, for the Pew Research Center, all right, about the distrust that's going on in American neighborhoods, okay? So the Lord said, "Love that neighbor." America believes to hate that neighbor. So we already know what that's gonna lead towards. So with that, I'm gonna say, "Kar halayim la Yahweh b'Hashem Yahushua b'Hashem Hakodash." You know what I'm saying? Give a double honors to our apostles and elders, a great millstone. Shalom, salutation to all you sincere occupants across the four winds, staying faithful and true to Yahweh b'Hashem Yahushua, man. Hey, Yahweh b'Hashem Yahushua b'Akatam b'Hashem Hakodash. Shalom.